When Ethan returned from his downtown office that evening, a roasted chicken was already resting on the dining table, its skin a perfect golden brown. The television murmured in the living room, broadcasting a late-night talk show to an empty space. Leo was curled on the expansive gray sectional, the sharp crunch of potato chips punctuating the host's monologue. Hearing the click of the front door, he quickly shoved the half-empty bag of sea salt and vinegar chips down the collar of his lounge shirt. Ethan entered the living room, his gaze sweeping the space before settling on Leo, a slight frown creasing his brow. He told Leo to get his feet off the furniture, questioning his posture. Leo, unbothered by the familiar tone of authority, complied without protest, sliding his legs to the floor and offering the impeccably dressed man an innocent smile. Ethan's expression remained impassive as he studied him for a moment. Then he leaned down, his hand reaching out to press a thumb against the corner of Leo's mouth. For a second, Leo was still, then a spark of understanding lit his eyes. He deliberately took hold of the silk tie hanging from Ethan's collar, pulling himself slightly closer. A flicker of amusement softened Ethan's gaze. His other hand moved towards Leo's collarbone, then dipped unexpectedly into the neck of his shirt. It emerged holding the crumpled bag of chips. Ethan straightened up, stepping back slightly, his features returning to their usual stern composure. He held up his thumb, displaying the salty crumb he'd wiped from Leo's lip, and stated that they had discussed the rule about junk food before dinner. He declared that, as a consequence for this continued infraction, all snacks were now confiscated. Leo shot up from the couch, intending to race to the pantry and rescue his stash. But he barely took 2 steps before a firm hand gripped the back of his shirt, holding him in place like a misbehaving puppy. He could only watch as Ethan carried the contraband into the home office and locked it inside a sleek, wall-mounted safe, placing the bags directly on top of a stack of sensitive corporate files. The chips were now afforded the same level of security as trade secrets. Dejectedly, Leo muttered that he didn't want them anyway. Ethan, closing the safe with a quiet click, warned him not to even think about buying more, as he would confiscate any new purchases as well. His eyes then landed on a disorderly pile of cardboard boxes next to the bookshelf. He inquired if they belonged to Leo. Leo walked over and opened one of the boxes for him, his tone a mixture of pride and showmanship as he announced they were his rare vinyl figures. Ethan's expression faltered for a moment, a subtle frown forming. He remarked that they couldn't just be left in a pile in his office. Leo mumbled that there was no room for them anywhere else. Ethan said nothing more, turning and walking towards the master bedroom. Leo followed, his hands behind his back, trailing him at a leisurely pace. Ethan stopped just inside the doorway and turned back, asking why he was following him and telling him to go eat dinner. Leo averted his gaze, claiming he wasn't hungry yet. With fluid, practiced motions, Ethan began to unbutton his suit jacket. He then asked if the written apology was finished. After a moment of silence, Leo admitted that it was not. Ethan's sharp eyes fixed on him, his expression suggesting a familiar lecture was imminent. Leo quickly spoke first, telling him not to look at him like that, insisting he hadn't snuck out all day. He punctuated his defense by tugging on the hem of his own shirt, adding that he was still in his lounge clothes. Ethan's expression softened slightly. He asked what, then, had occupied his time all day if he hadn't gone out and the apology remained incomplete. Leo froze for a second, a guilty look flashing across his face as he turned away and vaguely claimed the day had just slipped by. When no response came, Leo looked up. He saw Ethan opening the doors to the large, built-in closet. He watched as Ethan's movements paused almost imperceptibly upon seeing that one half of the closet was now occupied by a collection of casual wear, all several sizes smaller than his own tailored suits. A stiffness crept into Leo's posture, his breath held in his chest. His eyes were locked on Ethan's back, a visible tension in his shoulders. The next moment, however, Ethan simply reached into the closet, retrieved his own silk pajamas, and turned around. He held his suit jacket out to Leo, instructing him to hang it up. Leo let out a quiet breath, took the jacket, and distractedly hung it in the now crowded closet. When he turned back, Ethan was lifting the dark gray duvet on the king-sized bed, picking up a bright yellow pillow that sat beside his own charcoal-colored one. Leo's heart gave a slight jolt as he watched, his body tensing once more. But Ethan merely adjusted the askew pillow, setting it neatly in its place. He then turned back and reached an arm past Leo's face to close the closet door he had left ajar. He told him to stop daydreaming and go eat. A wide smile broke across Leo's face. But before it could fully form, Ethan's voice, now low and serious, added that if the apology wasn't finished by that night, he would be completing it in Ethan's office at the firm the next morning. The smile vanished, replaced by a grimace. At the dinner table, the aroma of herbs rose from the chicken. Leo approached the table, his eyes scanning the dishes. He reached out a finger to sneak a wing from the platter. A sharp tap of a chopstick on the back of his hand made him recoil. He looked up to meet Ethan's stern gaze and was told to go wash his hands. With a sigh, Leo shuffled towards the kitchen. He stood at the deep stainless steel sink, carelessly rolling up his sleeves and thrusting his hands under the faucet. Water soaked his fingers, and his sleeves immediately slid back down to his wrists. As he lifted his wet hands to turn off the water, he sensed someone approaching from behind. He started to turn his head in curiosity, but was stopped by the feeling of warm breath against his cheek. A pair of strong, well-defined hands reached under his arms, taking hold of his wrists. Methodically, Ethan rolled Leo's sleeves up to his forearms, securing them properly. Then, he guided Leo's hands back under the running water. The proximity and the quiet intimacy of the gesture sent a flush creeping up Leo's neck, making him forget all about washing his hands. He stammered that they were clean now. Ignoring him, the man behind him stepped back slightly, only to return with a bottle of liquid soap from the counter. His tone was non-negotiable as he instructed Leo to hold out his hands. Leo complied, receiving a pump of the fragrant soap, and silently fumed. When his hands were lathered, he rinsed them quickly and, eager to escape, turned to leave. He had barely taken 2 steps when Ethan's deep voice stopped him again, asking where he was going. Leo held up his hands in exasperation, questioning what was wrong now, insisting they were clean. Ethan's lips thinned in displeasure. He told him to dry them before he left the kitchen. He took a clean dish towel from its hook and meticulously dried Leo's hands himself before giving a slight nod, signaling that he was dismissed. Leo snatched his hands back and walked out without a word. As he reached the dining table, he saw the platter of roasted chicken still sitting invitingly among the vegetable side dishes. His eyes lit up and he instinctively reached for it again, only to stop himself mid-air. He shot a wary glance back towards the kitchen. Ethan had not yet emerged. He lowered his hands, studying them back and front as if he'd never seen them before. After a moment, a slow, inexplicable heat began to rise in his cheeks. He was only shaken from his reverie by the sound of steady footsteps approaching. Leo quickly coughed, pulled out a chair, and sat down. As Ethan passed by him, he picked up the platter of chicken and placed it deliberately by his own setting. Leo stared, dumbfounded, then started to rise from his chair to protest. Ethan simply raised an eyebrow, his gaze sharp and commanding. Leo hesitated for a second, his eyes darting to the coveted platter, his throat working. He lifted his chin, his voice filled with righteous indignation as he demanded to know why he couldn't have any after he had washed his hands. Ethan's reply was delivered with detached calm. He informed Leo that there would be no meat for him until the apology was finished. He then picked up his fork, adding that he should sit down. Leo, momentarily stunned, sank back into his chair, but then immediately shot up again, slamming his hand on the table and demanding to know what he meant. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly, his imposing presence filling the space between them. He calmly used his utensils to serve a portion of carrots and sautéed greens onto Leo's plate, telling him to eat. Leo's mouth twitched. He looked up to see Ethan take out his phone and send a voice message to their housekeeper, Maria. He heard Ethan's clear voice instructing her that Leo was being uncooperative lately, and that she should refrain from preparing any meat dishes until his apology was complete. After dinner, Leo usually disappeared, especially today. He had arranged for his things to be moved over, which included his brand new PS5. Eager to reconnect with his long-neglected console, he dropped his utensils and vanished into his room. 20 minutes later, he emerged barefoot for a glass of water. His gaze fell upon the dining table, where the used dishes remained, uncleared. From the partially open door of the home office, he could hear Ethan's voice on a business call. Leo stood there, glass in hand, staring at the table. For some reason, a memory from his teenage years surfaced. It was shortly after he had started dating his first girlfriend in high school, a period when his truancy had reached an all-time high. His exasperated principal had called his older brother repeatedly. His brother had lectured him many times, but the words went in one ear and out the other. Then one day, Leo himself grew tired of it all. He spent an entire day at school, sleeping from the first bell to the last. The relieved principal called his brother to report the good news. The very next day, Leo went to an ATM and discovered $1,000 missing from his allowance. Minutes later, Ethan, who was in a meeting in his study, heard the distinct, sharp shatter of ceramic from the direction of the kitchen. He abruptly ended his call and strode quickly towards the sound. He found Leo standing motionless by the sink, bent slightly at the waist, staring down at the floor. A white dinner plate had shattered at his feet. Ethan's voice was sharp as he ordered him not to move. Startled by the command and already anxious about the accident, Leo froze, looking up at him blankly. After a moment, he quietly defended himself, saying he wasn't moving. Ethan didn't reply. His gaze shifted down to Leo's bare feet, and his frown deepened. As if sensing the direction of his stare, Leo curled his toes self-consciously. He straightened up and pointed at the mess, asking if the plate was part of a set and offering to buy a new one. Ethan's lips were pressed into a thin line, his face a mask of anger. Leo, sensing the shift, nervously picked at the edge of the granite countertop behind his back. He asked hesitantly if it was very expensive, more than his monthly allowance. Ethan cut him off, his voice colder and sharper now. He asked how many times he had told him to wear slippers in the house. Leo was speechless, muttering that he forgot. He looked down at the scattered pieces of ceramic, feeling a profound sense of dejection he couldn't remember experiencing before. The next moment, one of Ethan's arms slid under his back and the other behind his knees, lifting him completely off the floor. Leo's hands shot up instinctively, grabbing the front of Ethan's shirt, his mind going blank with surprise. By the time he came to his senses, he realized that in his panicked state, he had torn the second button from Ethan's dress shirt. He looked away from Ethan's face, stammering an explanation about the poor quality of the shirt, insisting it wasn't his fault. Ethan carried him to the living room and gently set him down on the sofa. He looked down at him, his gaze analytical. He asked why breaking a plate had made him so nervous. Leo opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. Ethan's intense demeanor softened as he asked if he was worried about being scolded, if he was afraid of him. He sat down beside him, his presence no longer intimidating. He pointed out that Leo's own brother couldn't control him because he wasn't afraid of him. He and his brother were similar in age, from similar backgrounds, yet Leo feared him. He gently took Leo's chin, forcing him to meet his gaze. He told him to listen. He said that Leo was looking for a partner to build a life with, not a father to remind him to do his homework and drink his milk before bed. Therefore, there was no reason to be afraid. Ethan paused, his voice slowing for emphasis. He explained that he wasn't angry because Leo broke the plate. He was angry because he saw Leo about to try and pick up the sharp pieces himself, and because he was standing barefoot on a floor covered in them. He asked if he understood how high the risk of getting cut was. Leo stared, a novel feeling of confusion welling up in his chest. His mind raced, cycling through countless possible responses, but he couldn't utter a single one. Finally, his lips moved. He scrambled up, pushed Ethan back against the sofa cushions, and pressed a trembling, determined kiss to his mouth. A faint, fleeting smile touched Ethan's deep eyes. When they parted, Leo heard his low voice, tinged with a slight amusement. He asked why Leo always defaulted to thinking of ways to escape a situation without consequence, when a simple kiss could resolve the predicament. When Ethan finished cleaning up the kitchen, he found Leo still sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. He told him it was time to take a shower. Leo mumbled an affirmation, hopped off the couch, and started humming as he walked toward his room. Ethan's voice cut through his tune, asking if he was in a good mood. Leo blinked, coughed, and said he supposed he was. Ethan's tone reverted to its usual businesslike manner as he reminded him to come write the apology after his shower. When Leo emerged, showered and fresh, he saw Ethan carrying the cardboard box of his collectibles out of the office. He hurried over, asking why he was moving his box. Ethan glanced at his still dripping hair and asked when he would ever learn to dry his hair properly. Leo pouted, muttering that it was Ethan's books that filled up all the shelves, leaving no room for his treasures. He held out his hands, offering to move them to his room. Ethan frowned, lecturing that a bedroom was not a storeroom. Leo's face fell, his voice thick with discontent as he argued that he was putting them in his room, not Ethan's room. Ethan stated plainly, "Isn't my room your room?" Leo froze for a second. "What?" An almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of Ethan's lips. He pointed out that Leo had already moved his pillow and his clothes into his room. Understanding dawned on Leo, and a deep blush spread across his face. Ethan carried the box toward the spare room that served as storage. Leo, his face still bright red, chased after him, asking where he was taking his precious figures. Ethan stopped. He asked if the storage room wasn't acceptable. Leo's face fell as he declared he did not consent. Ethan's gaze was calm as he informed him that his objection was overruled, reminding him whose house it was. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. He protested that Ethan hadn't spoken like this an hour ago. Ethan replied with a placido, as if he had no memory of their earlier conversation. He asked what he had said. Leo stammered, unable to articulate it. He rubbed his face, as if trying to wipe away his embarrassment, and finally blurted out that they were married, so his things were also his things. Ethan acknowledged this with a simple hum and asked what else he had said. Leo couldn't recall anything else, the memory lost to the heat rising to his ears. Ethan watched him, a quiet observer. He softened his tone and asked again, "What else?" Leo's eyes darted around. He stepped forward, looped an arm around Ethan's neck, and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. Then he pulled back, crossed his arms, and tried to look thoroughly displeased, though the vibrant red of his ears betrayed him completely. He demanded to know if his objection was valid now, Mr. Hayes. Valid? Ethan nodded, the faint smile returning. He added that he'd worried Leo might not understand him, given his poor performance in high school English. The comment made Leo's composure crumble. He snapped back, asking if Ethan was calling him stupid in a roundabout way. Ethan's expression instantly turned stern. "What did you say?" Leo froze, remembering he wasn't talking to one of his rowdy friends. He immediately became meek, quickly insisting he hadn't said anything. He then reached for the box in Ethan's arms, but the unexpected weight made him stumble backward. He wondered when a box of figures had become so heavy. He set it down, opened it, and found it filled not with his collectibles, but with Ethan's books. "Where are my figures?" he asked, looking up in shock, demanding to know if he had thrown them away. He stormed into the office. He opened the door, and as his gaze swept across the large bookshelf, he stopped. The top two shelves, once filled with leather-bound volumes, were now empty of books. In their place, arranged neatly behind the glass doors, were all of his prized figures. Leo's lips pressed together, a grin threatening to split his face. At that moment, he would have gladly written a 20,000-word apology. He was PNG on the small side table in the office, dutifully writing his apology, while Ethan sat at the main desk, conducting a video conference with his subordinates. During a break in the conversation, Ethan stood up to get a glass of water from the living room. The camera angle gave his colleagues a clear view of the bookshelf behind him. When Ethan returned, one of his department heads pointed in surprise at the screen. He asked what had happened to all the books in his office. Ethan replied coolly that they were temporarily in storage. The manager grinned knowingly, remarking that those were rare, first-eye books his assistant, Susan, had sourced for him. He teased Ethan, asking if he wasn't spoiling his son just a little too much. A flicker of surprise crossed Ethan's face. The manager continued, explaining they had heard a child's voice during the meeting. He gestured towards the figures on the shelf, asking if those belonged to his son. Ethan neither confirmed nor denied it. He glanced over at Leo, who was supposed to be writing. His brow immediately furrowed, and his expression grew cold. Leo was chewing on the end of his pen, his eyes fixed on the computer screen, clearly eavesdropping with great interest. He was so engrossed he didn't notice Ethan turning until it was too late. He quickly pulled the pen from his mouth and adopted a penitent expression, but he couldn't escape the stern reprimand. Ethan ordered him to sit up straight, questioning his sloppy posture. Leo let out a huff of defiance. Knowing he was out of the camera's view, he deliberately slumped further, resting his chin on the table. He looked over at Ethan and flashed a mischievous smile. Then, in a loud, clear voice, he called out, "Dad, I want some cherries." Ethan ignored him completely, turning back to the video call and wrapping up the meeting. After ending the call, he stood up and left the study. Leo pouted, then began to write furiously. He heard Ethan re-enter but didn't look up, not even when he heard the soft clink of a ceramic bowl being placed on the table beside him. His first instinct was to cover his apology paper with his hands. Only then did he look up. He saw a bowl of glistening ruby-red cherries. He stammered, asking if he had really gone to wash them. Ethan's dark eyes glanced at the paper Leo was so desperately hiding. He asked what he was writing. Leo looked away, mumbling that he would find out in due time. He quickly flipped the paper over, hiding the written side, then took a deep breath. With a blush warming his face, he popped a cherry into his mouth. He noticed Ethan was still watching him, his expression unreadable. Leo's cheeks puffed out as he worked the cherry, then he spat a knotted stem into his palm. Eager to change the subject, he held his hand out for Ethan to see, boasting that he could tie a knot with his tongue. As the words left his mouth, a vivid memory seemed to surface, and his expression faltered. He peeked up at Ethan, trying to gauge his reaction, but saw nothing. Disappointed, Leo pulled his hand back, clicking his tongue. He remarked quietly that he'd almost forgotten he said the exact same thing to him when he was 16, and that Ethan probably didn't remember. Ethan gave a non-committal hum. The disappointment on Leo's face deepened. Just as he was about to say something to break the awkward silence, a shadow fell over him. The next instant, he was pulled from his chair. Ethan braced one hand on the table and cupped the back of Leo's head with the other, leaning across the small table to kiss him without a word. After a long moment, Ethan pulled back slightly. The hand on his head moved to his lips, his thumb gently wiping away a trace of saliva from the corner of his mouth. His voice was husky as he spoke. He said that Leo's claim about his tongue required verification. He let out a soft sigh, adding that he had wanted to say that to him since he was 16. Leo, he murmured. Hearing his name spoken with such quiet intensity felt more profound than any grand declaration. At 7 the next morning, a voice pulled Leo from a deep sleep. Annoyed, he rolled over, burying his face in the pillow and mumbling for them to leave him alone, that he was exhausted. The words had barely left his mouth when the duvet was stripped away from him. A surge of anger made him sit bolt upright, his eyes flying open, ready to lash out. "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear me?" Halfway through the sentence, his brain caught up. He snapped awake, a cold sweat breaking out on his back. He sat frozen for 3 seconds before cautiously opening his eyes to look at the man standing by the bed, his expression unreadable. He scrambled over, planted a quick, placating kiss on his cheek, and adopted his most docile demeanor. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Ethan just stared at him coolly. Leo pouted, complaining that he was truly tired, that he hadn't slept until the middle of the night, not having shared a bed with anyone since he was 5. He rolled out of bed and went to the bathroom. While brushing his teeth, he turned, his speech muffled by the foam, and asked why they were up so early. Leaning against the doorframe, Ethan reminded him of his from the previous day. If the apology wasn't finished, he would write it at the office. An hour later, Ethan guided his car into a reserved spot in the underground parking garage of his corporate tower. Leo got out of the passenger seat and followed him into the private elevator that went directly to the executive suite. When Ethan's assistant, Susan, came in to report the day's schedule, she hesitated upon seeing Leo. She asked if he was Mr. Hayes' brother. Ethan walked past her without answering the question, instead instructing her to set up a small desk and chair in his office. Leo, trailing behind them, glanced from the plain wedding band on Ethan's left ring finger to his own bare hands and scoffed under his breath. Ethan had a morning meeting. Leo, his mind racing with escape plans, sat at the small desk and quickly scrawled out the last few hundred words of his apology. As soon as Ethan and his assistant left, he reviewed his work, then placed the thick stack of paper squarely in the center of Ethan's massive desk. He strolled out of the office, pulling out his phone as he walked. He called a friend. "Luke, my man, let's get together." Luke's lazy voice came through the line. "Who is this?" The door to the conference room opened. Ethan returned to his office to find the stack of paper on his desk, but the writer was gone. He sat down and began to flip through the pages. The first few were a sincere, if sloppily written, account of his wrongdoings and reflections, riddled with typos. By the fourth page, the tone changed abruptly, becoming a long, rambling stream of consciousness. Ethan frowned and, with low expectations, turned to the fifth page. He stopped. From the fifth page onward, Leo had used his pen to fill entire pages with two words: "I'm sorry." They were crammed together, a dense, repetitive pattern that transparently revealed his intention to take a shortcut. Ethan stared at the papers for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, the frown on his face smoothed out, and the corners of his mouth turned up in a faint, reluctant smile. Leo got into an elevator, pressing the button for the ground floor. "Who do you think this is?" he said into the phone. Luke's teasing voice replied, asking if it was the legendary Leo Vance, returned after a century of silence, and wondering why he wasn't at home being a good boy for his brother. Leo cursed at him and hung up. As he looked up to check the floor number, the elevator doors slid open. A crowd of employees swarmed in. He squeezed his way out, only to see the sign for the marketing department. He wasn't on the ground floor. He turned back, but the elevator doors were already closing. His expression darkened. He leaned against the elevator wall, fuming and fiddling with his phone. Behind him, two female employees were gossiping about Ethan. Leo feigned indifference, but his ears were pricked. One of them wondered aloud how Mr. Hayes could have a child so soon after getting married. The other was surprised, saying she hadn't heard anything about a child. The first explained that during a late-night conference call, the managers had heard a kid at his house call him Dad. A small smile finally touched Leo's lips. The second woman scoffed, saying it was obviously his partner, not a child. "You call your husband Daddy?" she teased. "It's just a thing they do." Her voice suddenly dropped. "Hey, do you think his partner is really?" Leo frowned, subtly shifting closer. The woman continued in a whisper, saying that after Mr. Hayes started wearing his ring, a certain someone started visiting their company a lot more. She'd seen him blushing while talking to Mr. Hayes several times. Her friend dismissed it as speculation, but the first insisted she had proof. The department head had mentioned that Mr. Hayes' study now had a lot of new toys and models. She had seen a photo where limited ion figures were visible on his bookshelf. She offered to find the picture. Leo was listening with a baffled expression. "Don't bother looking," a voice said. "Just look at the elevator door." "Isn't that him?" Leo froze for a second, then his ears turned bright red. He lowered his head, coughed lightly, and then, with a look of feigned nonchalance, lifted his head to look at the two women. But he found, strangely, that they weren't looking at him at all. Their gazes were fixed on a point over his shoulder, behind him. At the same time, the doors of the newly arrived elevator opened. Bodyguards and assistants flanked another man, who walked past Leo without a glance. Leo turned, catching only a glimpse of a delicate, pale profile in the crowd. Any thought of escape vanished. He wanted to follow and get a better look, but his phone rang. Assuming it was Ethan calling to find him, he ducked back into an empty elevator without thinking. He only realized it was Luke calling when he answered. Luke told him to come directly to the Tang family's new villa. Leo paused, remembering a long-standing invitation. He complained that the suburbs were too far and told Luke to come pick him up. Luke laughed, telling him to just get a cab. "A cab? Fine," Leo said coolly, "but you're paying." I forgot my wallet. Luke chuckled, teasing him about his brother cutting off his allowance. Are you deaf, Luke? Leo snapped. Just wait for me at the gate. He hung up and walked out of the elevator. He was squatting on the curb outside the massive office building, waiting for a taxi. From his corner office window high above, Ethan was talking to Susan. As his assistant placed a newly drafted proposal on his desk, she mentioned that the celebrity, Evan Fong, and his manager had arrived and were waiting in the conference room. Ethan's gaze drifted down from the window to the street below, and he frowned slightly. He held up a hand to interrupt Susan, turned, and picked up his phone from the desk. When his phone rang, Leo instinctively looked up at the towering building behind him. Feeling like a thief, he pulled the hood of his sweatshirt over his head before answering. Ethan got straight to the point, asking where he was. Leo cleared his throat and lied, saying he was in a car, heading home to grab a few things. Ethan didn't call him out on the lie. Instead, he said, I saw your apology. The words your apology made Leo's face burn. He quickly raised his voice, rudely cutting him off. What? I'm on the highway. The signal's bad. I'll talk to you when I get back. He hung up before Ethan could reply. Unfazed, Ethan put his phone down. He glanced at Susan, who had overheard the conversation and was staring at him with wide eyes. He opened a desk drawer, took out a set of car keys, and tossed them on the desk. He told her to take them. Startled, Susan grabbed the keys and asked if he was going out. Ethan returned to the window and pointed to the spot where Leo was squatting. You're going to give him a ride. Susan followed his gesture and looked down. Where to? You'll ask him, Ethan said, his voice flat as he sat back down at his desk. Wherever he wants to go, you just take him there. Susan nodded numbly. Ethan tapped a finger on the desk, adding one more instruction. And give him a message for me. 2 minutes later, an unfamiliar luxury sedan pulled up in front of Leo. He frowned and stepped back, but the front passenger window rolled down, revealing a familiar face in the driver's seat. It was Ethan's assistant. Leo's mouth twitched. He instinctively pulled his hood down, revealing his face. Susan spoke, inviting him to get in. He remained motionless outside the car, asking where they were going. Susan, looking puzzled, got out and opened the back door for him. She informed him that Mr. Hayes said he could go wherever he liked. 40 minutes later, the car stopped outside a gated villa community in the suburbs. Leo thanked her and reached for the door handle, but Susan stopped him. Mr. Hayes asked me to give you a message. Leo hesitated. What is it? Mr. Hayes said. Susan recited verbatim that he will pick you up tonight. Leo let out a quiet breath and pushed the door open, one leg already out of the car. But then he heard Susan's voice again. He also said the apology was well written. He was quite satisfied. Leo's body went rigid for a moment. He stepped out of the car nonchalantly, saying, "Oh." The second he turned his back, however, a hot blush surged to his face. Luke came out to meet him, his eyes following the departing car. He rubbed his chin, commenting on the nice car. When Leo didn't respond, Luke looked at him, his eyebrows shooting up in surprise. "Why are you blushing?" Before he could finish, he saw Leo shoot him a glare, then stride past him into the community without another word. It would be months before the spoiled young Luke Tang would learn the phrase mortified into anger. Inside the villa, bikini-clad models and men in swim trunks milled about with champagne flutes. The other rich kids were lounging on sofas, flirting with hired eye candy. Leo found a relatively quiet spot at the bar. A shirtless bartender with a chiseled physique slid a glass of red wine toward him, leaning in to murmur an invitation. Leo took the wine with a smirk, then pressed a single finger against the man's shoulder, his expression suddenly turning cold as he told him to back off. The bartender retreated. Luke appeared, tossing an invitation onto the counter. It was for Shan's sister's birthday party. Leo first dumped the contents of his glass, which he suspected was spiked, into the sink. Then he picked up the invitation. He asked why his invitation had been sent to Luke. Luke came around the bar and mixed a brightly colored cocktail, sliding it to him. He explained that he'd run into Sean at a club the other day, and since Leo had been laying low, Sean asked him to pass it along. Leo folded the invitation and put it in his pocket. He took a sip of the cocktail and immediately grimaced, complaining that it was as terrible as ever. Luke shrugged, unconcerned, saying if he didn't like it, someone else would. He took the drink back and then slung an arm around Leo's shoulders, leading him upstairs. In the second-floor game room, two other friends, Chris and Jason Tang, were leaning on their pool cues, chatting. Leo sauntered over and leaned against the pool table, asking what secrets they were discussing that required hiding away. Chris just nodded towards Jason, telling him to ask him. Leo draped an arm over Jason's shoulders. Jason, reeking of alcohol, turned to him with a conspiratorial grin. I heard something big recently, he slurred. Leo pinched his nose in disgust and stepped back, asking Chris how he could even talk to someone so drunk. Chris just chuckled and told him to just listen. Luke's interest was piqued. Spill it, Jason. Ethan Hayes, Jason began, his eyes squinted. You all know him, right? The one who's a generation above us. He let out a belch. For the past 2 years, everyone's been trying to set him up with their sons and daughters. Luke sipped his wine, remarking dismissively that you couldn't just marry into the Hayes family. That's what makes this so crazy, Jason said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. A lot of people have seen him wearing a wedding ring on his left hand recently. Luke stroked his chin thoughtfully, admitting that if Ethan really did get married, the news was kept incredibly quiet. Jason grunted in satisfaction, then lowered his voice dramatically. Do you know who he married? Leo raised an eyebrow. Before their wedding, he and Ethan had agreed not to make it public. The ring was just to ward off unwanted advances. No one outside their circle was supposed to know who his spouse was. He glanced at Jason, saw that he wasn't looking in his direction, and relaxed slightly. He clapped Jason on the shoulder, sarcastically telling him he needed to sober up. But then he heard Luke eagerly ask, Who? Leo, growing impatient, elbowed him. You actually believe a drunk? Luke just grinned. Sometimes a drunk's words are the most truthful. Losing his patience, Leo dropped onto a nearby sofa, crossing his legs. Fine. Let's see what masterpiece he comes up with. Jason licked his dry lips, a glint in his hazy eyes. You know the Fong family's youngest son, right? The one with the pointy chin, looks like a girl. Chris looked up in disbelief. Now that you mention it, I think I remember him. Luke thought for a moment. Evan Fong? The one who's a big deal in showbiz now, all the girls love him. He glanced at Leo, who was absorbed in a game on his phone. You remember him, right? We met him when we were kids. Leo, whose attention was entirely on his game, hadn't heard a word. He looked up, annoyed. Who? Evan Fong from the Fong family? Luke repeated himself, a mischievous glint in his eye. He reminded Leo of meeting him at a banquet when they were kids. How Evan had long braids and they thought he was a girl, and how Leo had tried to pull down his overalls to check. Leo scoffed. Oh, that guy. What about him? It's him, Jason declared, his words slurring. The whole circle is saying that Ethan Hayes' husband is him. Leo's face twisted. Ethan and Evan Fong had absolutely no connection. Of all the people to guess, why did it have to be someone he had a childhood feud with? He squinted, trying to recall what Evan looked like as a kid, but his mind inexplicably conjured the image of the delicate profile he'd seen at Ethan's company that morning. The two faces slowly merged in his mind. Then came the memory of the two female employees' conversation. The pieces started to connect. His face went slack for a few seconds, then he shot up, slamming his hand on the table. The hell? The other three turned to look at him. Leo, his face still flushed with anger, scowled at them. "What are you looking at?" Jason, so drunk he couldn't recognize anyone, stumbled over. "Well, if it's not Evan Fong, who is it? It could be anyone but him." Leo snatched the wine glass from Luke's hand and downed it in one go. As the alcohol rushed to his head, the words tumbled out before he could stop them. "For all you know, the person who married Ethan Hayes is me." The room fell silent. Leo's mind instantly cleared. After a long pause, he lifted his chin, his voice a little reluctant. "Don't you guys go spreading that around." Chris cut him off with a sarcastic tone. "If you married Ethan Hayes, does that mean I'm supposed to marry my brother?" Jason roared with laughter. Luke also leaned in, studying him with a thoughtful expression, wondering aloud if the cocktail he'd mixed was stronger than he thought. None of them took his words seriously. Leo let out a breath, relieved they thought he was joking, but he felt an even deeper frustration welling inside him. He scowled, picking up another glass of wine and draining it. Soon, all the glasses on the tray were empty. He pushed them aside and stood up to leave. Luke, holding his pool cue, glanced at him. "Where are you going?" Leo waved a hand dismissively without turning back. "Restroom." Seeing that he was speaking clearly and walking steadily, Luke didn't think much of it. It was only much later that he remembered and went downstairs to look for him. He found the liquor cabinet behind the bar wide open. Leo was passed out on the bar, his face flushed, surrounded by empty bottles. A now sober Jason Tang walked over, his face pale as he surveyed his depleted collection. Luke leaned down and patted Leo's cheek. Leo swatted his hand away, mumbling for him to leave him alone. Luke's face darkened as he looked at the others. "Who got him this drunk?" One of the other young heirs, who had been fooling around on the sofa, quickly sat up and claimed that Leo had helped himself to the liquor. Jason looked at Luke's thunderous expression and asked cautiously what they should do. Luke said there was only one thing to do: call his family to come get him. Chris fished Leo's phone out of his pocket and tossed it to Luke, commenting that Leo's family had been keeping a tight rein on him lately, and he was probably in for it when he got home. Luke used Leo's thumb to unlock the phone and went to his contacts, looking for his brother's number. He hadn't scrolled far when his finger paused. Under the letter E was a contact simply named Ethan. Chris leaned over to look, his face a picture of confusion. Didn't Leo's dad pass away years ago? Obviously, this wasn't that kind of dad. With perfect composure, Luke pressed the call button and put it on speaker, a playful smile on his face. He found it hilarious that the Hellraiser of their circle would have someone saved in his phone like this. The phone rang 3 times before it was answered. Luke cleared his throat and spoke first. "Hello, Leo is drunk. Could you please come and pick him up?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then a deep, authoritative male voice replied, "Send me the address." Luke hesitated, then agreed. After hanging up, he scratched his head, muttering to himself that the voice sounded a lot like Ethan Hayes. Chris scoffed, telling him he must be drunk too. Luke laughed it off, saying he wasn't Leo. They quickly forgot about it. Luke had Chris watch Leo while he went out to the patio to make a few calls. When he returned, Jason was frantically herding the models upstairs, while the other guys were clumsily pulling on their shirts and pants. Luke, a cigarette dangling from his lips, hands in his pockets, asked what was going on. Did the cops show up? Or did Chris's brother come looking for him again? Chris scowled. This has nothing to do with me. Jason hurried down the stairs and showed Luke a photo the security guard at the gate had sent him. Doesn't the guy in the driver's seat look a little like Ethan Hayes? Luke scoffed, leaning in for a look. The cigarette fell from his lips. 2 minutes later, Ethan's car pulled into the villa's driveway. Jason supported Leo as he brought him outside. Luke and Chris followed at a slower pace. Seeing Jason's anxious expression, Luke suddenly remembered seeing Ethan at a bar a few weeks ago. He reasoned that Leo's brother was probably out of town and had asked Ethan to look after him. Jason breathed a sigh of relief. Chris sneered. "You're pathetic." Ethan took Leo from Jason, his hands supporting his shoulders. He glanced at the three of them standing in a row. How much did he drink? Jason thought for a moment. 4 or 5 bottles, I think. Ethan nodded slightly. Besides drinking, what else did he do? Jason quickly waved his hands, insisting that was all. Luke chimed in, saying that Ethan was just supposed to be watching him for his brother, so as long as he was okay, that was all that mattered, right? This has nothing to do with Leo's brother, Ethan said coolly. He slid an arm around Leo's waist, pulling him securely against his side. In the future, you can ask him to hang out. But when he's drinking and causing trouble, just keep an eye on him for me. He turned and helped Leo into the car. As Leo slumped against the seat, fast asleep, a chain around his neck slipped out from his shirt collar. On it hung a simple, plain wedding band. The 3 young men fell silent, their eyes darting from the ring on Ethan's left hand to the one around Leo's neck, back and forth, their jaws practically on the floor. After a long moment, Jason looked at Chris with a bewildered expression. Does this mean you really are marrying your brother? Chris looked like he wanted to die. Get lost. For Shan's sister's birthday party, the Shin family sent separate invitations to Leo and Ethan. No one knew that a single invitation would have sufficed. Shan, with a touch of mischief, had even added a note to Ethan's invitation. Mrs. Hayes is welcome to attend. Susan came by to drop off their formal wear. Leo was still in bed, so the assistant, though disappointed not to see the legendary Mrs. Hayes, took careful note of the 2 suit bags. The black one was clearly Ethan's size. The white one was slightly smaller. It didn't take a genius to figure out who it was for. Recalling the rampant rumors at the office, Susan mentally pictured Evan Fong's slender frame and decided it was a perfect match. Could the rumors really be true? Leo, completely unaware of these speculations, was still focused on arriving separately from Ethan to avoid suspicion. He got out of bed, ate breakfast, put on the white suit, grabbed what he thought was his invitation from the entryway table, and left. The party was at the Shin family's main estate. Leo took a taxi to Luke's house, planning to ride with him from there. He'd been to Luke's so many times he knew the way by heart and didn't bother to call ahead. But as the taxi pulled up to the community gate, Luke was already there, a smirk on his face, opening the back door for him and paying the driver. Leo stood to the side, arms crossed with a cool expression, watching the entire exchange. After the taxi left, he said sarcastically, "Such unsolicited attentiveness suggests ill intentions." "How would I dare?" Luke drawled, raising an eyebrow. "My mother taught me from a young age that juniors should respect their elders." Leo was confused. "Have you lost your mind, Luke?" "It's not my mind that's lost," Luke said, patting him on the shoulder with feigned respect. "We're not of the same generation anymore, Mrs. Hayes." Upon hearing this, Leo arrogantly lifted his chin. "Junior, be so kind as to remove your hand from my shoulder. Otherwise, I'll have to report you to Mr. Hayes." Luke laughed and pinched his reddening earlobe. "Mrs. Hayes, why aren't you riding to the shuns with Mr. Hayes? Why are you slumming it with us juniors?" This hit a sore spot. Leo glared at him, still fuming from a card game that afternoon where Luke had nearly bankrupted him. As evening approached, Leo rode in Luke's sports car to the Shin estate. The parking area was a showcase of luxury vehicles. Leo scanned the area but didn't see Ethan's car. The Shin family's eldest son, Sean, stood at the entrance with his beautifully dressed sister, greeting guests. Leo and Luke went to the security checkpoint. Leo tossed his invitation to the guard, but as he started to walk past, he was stopped. "Sir, I'm sorry, this is not your invitation. You can't enter. If it's not my invitation, is it yours?" Leo retorted, snatching it back. He opened it, glanced at the name, and his voice died in his throat. After a moment, he cursed under his breath. He had brought Ethan's invitation by mistake. The commotion drew looks from other guests. Sean came over to smooth things over, telling the guard to let them in. He casually remarked that he had dropped off the invitation at Leo's family home the other day, but they said he had moved out. Leo, who barely knew Sean, gave a non-committal grunt and made up a quick excuse, then slung an arm around Luke's shoulder and headed inside. Sean, not particularly fond of these young troublemakers anyway, smiled politely and turned back, just in time to see Ethan's car pull up. He went to greet him personally, his gaze discreetly scanning the car's interior. "Ethan," he said, "where's my sister-in-law? Didn't she come?" Ethan's expression was neutral. "She's here. She came on her own." Sean was surprised. "She has an invitation?" Ethan looked at him. "Did you write it, or did I?" Sean rubbed his chin thoughtfully. They had invited so many people, the housekeeper wrote most of the invitations. Only a small number were written by him personally. He mentally went through the list, crossing off Leo's name. Just then, he heard a small commotion behind him. Evan Fong, the celebrity, had arrived. Sean's sister and her friends crowded around him, asking for autographs. Sean's gaze shifted from Evan's black suit to the black suit Ethan was wearing. Suddenly, the wild rumors from the past few weeks came to mind. As it happened, the Fong family's invitation was one he had written himself. Sean's eyes narrowed. "Ethan," he said, "are you and Evan Fong wearing matching outfits?" "No," Ethan said, not even glancing in Evan's direction. He walked inside with Susan. His assistant, however, curiously looked at Evan, noted his suit, and was certain he was not the one. But Sean was clearly unconvinced. He watched as Ethan walked away, and then saw Evan, having dismissed his fans, follow Ethan into the villa. A look of "I knew it" crossed his face. In the brightly lit ballroom, Luke and Chris were already seated at a table in the middle, waving them over. Luke sat down, but Leo went to find the restroom. When he returned, Luke pointed to a table near the front. "Look, Mrs. Hayes, your man is here." Leo's view was blocked by other guests. He could only see a corner of Ethan's suit. His gaze shifted to Evan Fong, who was seated at the opposite table. He asked if he was there to perform. Who would dare ask the young master of the Fong family to perform? Luke said, resting his chin on his hand. "Ethan's wearing black, why are you wearing white? You should have learned from Evan Fong. Now everyone in this room thinks your man and him are wearing matching outfits." Leo looked again and frowned in annoyance. He did that on purpose. Luke, unfazed, added fuel to the fire with a smile. But I have to say, with his hair done and makeup on, that pretty boy Evan looks a lot better than you with your bare face. You think this is a beauty pageant? Leo sneered. A man wearing makeup? What's that supposed to look like? Though he sounded dismissive, he stood up and walked out onto the open-air terrace behind the ballroom. Luke clicked his tongue, muttering to himself, I wonder who he learned that tone from. In a quiet corner, Leo flagged down a waiter and had him deliver a message to Evan Fong. A few moments later, Evan walked out onto the terrace. Seeing a stranger with his back to him, he approached with a cool expression and asked who he was. Leo turned around lazily, his voice dripping with scorn. Evan Fong. Ethan Hayes is already married. Why are you still clinging to him? Evan gave him a cold glance. Who are you? Leo snorted. Who do you think I am? He studied Evan in the dim moonlight, a flicker of recognition and disdain in his eyes. I thought it was someone important. Turns out it's just Pebbles. Leo's face darkened. The long-buried childhood nickname suddenly resurfaced. You're Pebbles. Evan's cool demeanor vanished, enraged by the name he hadn't heard in years. Pebbles? You dare say that again? Leo was completely unbothered. I said it. So what? No matter what rumors you spread, the person married to Ethan Hayes will never be you. So give up. Evan, gritting his teeth, shot back. If it's not me, is it you? Leo lifted his chin, his voice full of smug satisfaction. Why couldn't it be me? Evan took a deep breath. The elegant and aloof persona he had carefully cultivated disappeared completely. Just like when they were children, he rolled up his sleeves and charged. Leo sidestepped, mischievously sticking out his foot to trip him. In all their childhood fights, Evan had never once won. He couldn't have improved that much over the years. Leo's triumphant smirk had barely formed when Evan, stumbling towards the swimming pool, grabbed a fistful of his sleeve. 2 seconds later, a huge splash from the terrace drew the attention of every guest in the ballroom. A panicked waiter rushed in and whispered something to Sean. Sean instructed the butler to fetch 2 clean, large towels, then started to head towards the terrace himself. On second thought, he walked over to Ethan, who had stood up to look back. His voice was full of schadenfreude. No need to look. Evan Fong and Leo fell into the pool. Ethan's gaze returned to him. He turned and walked towards the terrace. His expression was calm, but his steps were large and hurried. Sean hadn't bothered to lower his voice, and in the now quiet ballroom, everyone had heard him. They all turned to look at Ethan, then followed him with expressions of keen interest, eager to see the drama unfold. Leo, soaking wet, stood up from the bottom of the pool. He wiped the water from his face, about to let loose a string of curses, when he saw a crowd of elegantly dressed guests pouring out onto the terrace. Leading them was none other than his husband. Leo immediately bit his tongue and shot a furious glare at Evan. Evan, not expecting to have such a large audience for his mishap, was awkwardly wiping his face, no longer concerned with fighting. Ethan stopped at the edge of the pool, his face grim as he looked at the 2 of them in the water. He said nothing. The other guests, sensing this was a domestic dispute, didn't dare to intervene. With so many people watching, Leo didn't expect Ethan to pull him out. He swam to the edge and hoisted himself onto the deck. He turned to see Evan slowly making his way up the stairs from the shallow end and couldn't help but roll his eyes. The butler handed 2 towels to Sean. Sean took one and gestured with his chin towards Ethan. The butler, understanding, offered the other towel to Ethan. But Ethan remained motionless, not even turning his head. Whispers started to ripple through the crowd. They speculated that Ethan's coldness towards Evan must mean it was a marriage of convenience, a business arrangement between the two families. Leo, standing dripping wet on the deck, didn't hear the whispers, but he saw Ethan's inaction and understood he was likely angry. He confidently reached for the towel in the butler's hand, but Sean stepped in front of him, intercepting it. He moved to wrap the towel around Leo's shoulders, his tone warm and teasing. "Leo, if your brother finds out you fell into my pool, he's gonna give me an earful." Before he could finish, the towel was snatched from his hands. Sean looked up, stunned. Ethan, who had been standing silently with a grim expression, had finally moved. He took Leo's wrist, pulled him away, took the large towel from the butler, and wrapped Leo up from head to toe, pulling him into his arms. The crowd was dumbfounded. The lovely Evan Fong stood there, soaking wet and alone in the chilly autumn wind, looking up with shocked eyes. Ethan lifted his gaze and looked at Sean. "Sean, what did you just call Leo?" "Sister-in-law," Sean replied immediately, as meek as a lamb. "I called him sister-in-law." Leo, hiding in the towel, his face bright red, pressed his lips together tightly. He tried to glare, but he couldn't hide the delighted smile that spread across his face. A few days later, everyone received wedding invitations from the Hayes family.